I'm going to come in today with a little bit of a hot take, and it completely stems off of what I'm seeing here on LinkedIn, what I'm talking to brokers about, and it's really funny to me. Hot take, captives take way too much credit for the success of your clients. And when I say your clients, I'm speaking to brokers. When the client saves money the first year and you win the client, or it's your current client and you save them on the renewal, the captive gets all the applause. When the next year comes and the rates go up, and it's just like, hey, yeah, that's insurance. Captives are just painted in this light as this like perfect being. And I just think that brokers are the reason for the success a lot more than the captive is. So today I wrote down some notes I created 4 myths of captives that us brokers have been told to believe, and then, of course, market to companies all across the country. And so my first one I want to go into is captives have the best cost containment. Complete myth that we've been told over and over and over again. And here's the thing. The captive at the end of the day is stop loss insurance. That's it. They didn't do all the work to put the third-party administrator in. They didn't do the work to get the pass-through pharmacy benefit manager in, the alternative sourcing, the reference-based pricing, a performance really niche network, a direct contract, a direct primary care navigation. They didn't do any of that work. You did. You as a broker put that in place. You did all of that work. You did all of the paperwork. You got the proposal. You did the implementation. You did the work. And maybe you didn't do the work, but the third-party administrator helped you with it, or a program manager like us helped you put that in place. The captive didn't do that. So when we say captives have the best cost containment strategies, they don't have cost containment strategies. They're stop loss. That's it. And so to go a little bit further on that, if I took those cost containment strategies, which again, they're not proprietary to any captive, if I took those to any stop loss carrier in the country, if your captive gave a reduction for it, more likely than not, every other stop loss carrier in the country is going to give you a reduction, the same or even more than a captive. So again, right now, everyone says captives have great cost containment. They don't have cost containment. They just know vendors in the space. My myth 2 here is the dividend. The dividends are great. The captive returns the capital back to the members of the captive, which I created a little spreadsheet here. I'm going to share my screen because I think it's funny and it's a good conversation when we're going against a captive. Here we go. My screen. Okay, so here is an example of a captive dividend. Okay. Captives do give a dividend. And so let's explain what that means and then why I think it doesn't matter. Here's an example of a 100 life group. They spend $1 million a year in health insurance. So what does that comprise of in the self-funded world is you got about 10% in admin, maybe 15 if you got a lot of cost containment things in there with admin fees. You got about 25% in stop loss premium, and then the rest of it is your aggregate factors or your maximum claims liability. Okay, that's what $1 million breaks down to. Stop loss premium or captive premium, same thing. It's about $250,000 for a $1 million spend. Pretty average. What we're seeing, maybe it's 300, sometimes it's 400, sometimes it's a little bit less, but 250 is right on the spot. So either you're paying this to traditional stop loss or you're paying this to the captive. To join the captive, you have to fund a capital contribution. So what is a capital contribution? A captive is a company. And when the company has profit, a company distributes its profit to the shareholders or the owners. It's a dividend. So as a company, you're buying in, as a client or a member, you're buying into the captive company, and that's usually about 25% of your stop loss premium. So in this case, $62,500. How does a captive distribute profit, dividends? So they pool everybody's premium together, and they're a company. They have administrative costs to pay the bills of the captive. They have fees for the underwriter. They have captive management fees. They have fees for the carrier. So you have administrative costs. And then you have a reinsurance premium that they go and buy, and you hear the captive layer. That's it. We won't get into that today, but they have the captive layer and the reinsurance there. And the captive layer then is the claims bucket. Like when a company like this, a 100-employee company, reaches their specific deductible and has to file a claim with stop loss, they pull from that captive layer first, or they pull from that claims bucket first at the captive. So really, if you think about it, a stop loss premium or captive is really its own self-funded plan inside the self-funded plan. That average return of capital, that underwriting profit that they pass back, is 6 to 8%, is what we typically hear of the capital contribution. So 8% of $62,500 is $5,000. Let's think about this. If that captive layer or if that captive claims fund goes to zero, then they need to reach into their reserves, which is your capital contribution. And if they have to reach into that capital contribution, then you or the client needs to replenish their capital contribution. So the thought is an 8% return. It's going to take them about 13 years to fund that capital contribution back or get that back in dividends. Okay, great. Makes sense. It's an investment, but you also have downside risk. Let's go a little bit further. $5,000 of $1 million spend. That's 0.5%. If your prospect, your client is making a decision on 0.5% of their spend, you did not do your job. They do not make a decision on 0.5%. I can go to any stop loss carrier in the country and get them to bring at any rate down $5,000. On a 100-employee company, this is like $4 and I think like 20 cents an employee, give or take, per employee per month, $4.20. I can go find that anywhere. I can make the admin come down. I can make the stop loss come down. I can lower the ag factors. I can take it out of our cut. $4, that's all we're asking for. And this dividend isn't that great. I'm going to go one step further. This is kind of like even takes it too far, but a company that's 100 employees, they have $1 million medical spend. They're probably doing $20 million in revenue a year total. They probably have a 20% margin, so 80% cost. That's $16 million in cost a year. That's $8,000 an hour. If they're spending $8,000 an hour, why do they care about a $5,000 dividend? They don't. So yes, dividend, cool, great return on premium. But at the end of the day, they do not care about $5,000. So on to my next myth. Let me unshare my screen here. The next myth for a captive is less volatility because we're with like-minded employers. Do you really have less volatility because of you're with like-minded employers? Something that people don't understand, and a lot of captives, the perfect member is like 50 enrolled to like 150 enrolled. Like that's a perfect member for a captive because you are pooling risk together, and that all makes sense. But a 50 enrolled company or 75 enrolled company, they're not going to get their own stop loss policy anywhere, even on the traditional market. In the background, those employers are pooled just like your captive. They're pooled with other like-minded employers that want to be self-funded. To this day, there's not many captives that require cost containment to get into the captive. And the reason is captives make a percentage of premium. Carriers make a percentage of premium. So they want to let everybody in. As long as they fit underwriting, who cares what they do? They can have the big four, big three, big four PBMs. They can have a big network with no cost containment. Like they could do all of that. Their premiums will be higher. They'll let them in. But is that really a like-minded employer? No. It's just like everybody else going to buy traditional stop loss. So in my opinion, going to a captive or going to getting a traditional stop loss and them putting you in their pool is no different about how your risk is mitigated. Oh, they say, oh, we smooth out renewals. We could take lasers away. Every stop loss carrier does that. It's called pooled risk. This is insurance. You are pooling your risk. So the like-minded employers, you know what that is we like to party together once a year at the membership meeting. And I don't blame them. It's probably fun. Not probably, it is fun. That is fun, but it's not changing your rate. It's not smoothing your renewal. When you look at your renewal, you're going to get an increase because of your claims, and then you're going to get an additional increase because of how the pool ran. If you're getting increases on your stop loss that are 10 to 15 to 20% when you're not changing contracts, you're doing something, the pool is doing something wrong. And maybe you don't have the right claims management strategy in place. So again, like-minded employers, cool to hang out with, doesn't actually save you money. at the end of the day. Myth number 4 is all about the no new laser contract. So I'm going to share my screen one more time here. No new laser contracts might be the biggest facade that I've seen in the entire captive marketing pitch. Let me share my screen to show you. Let's talk about the no new laser. So one of the biggest fears of a self-funded policy is getting a laser. And what is a laser? So you have 2 types of stop loss. Let's talk about the one, a specific plan, specific deductible, specific coverage. Every member usually has a specific deductible. Is it $50,000, $60,000, $100,000, depending on the size of the group? And what that says is if a member has paid claims up to that deductible, up to that amount, above that, the stop loss carrier or the captive will pay unlimitedly to cover that claim. It's a way to protect the employer. If it's a spec and an ag policy, it's a way to protect the claims bucket. And what's scary is when you have a big claim. So in year 1, when you have a cancer claim come onto your plan, they'll reach their specific deductible, but that member stays on the plan year 2, and the stop loss carrier comes back and they go, hey, look, this claimant we know is going to spend $250,000 this year. Your specific deductible is $50,000. So we can have 2 things. I can raise your stop loss premium by $200,000 and some trend, or I can give you a laser, and everybody has a $50,000 deductible besides the cancer patient. They have a $250,000 deductible. This is what scares people of joining self-funding. Captives love to pitch that they have the strongest contract in the country, that they have a no new laser contract, which means if you buy the no new laser and then a laserable person member comes on the plan, they won't give you a laser, which sounds really great. But if you really think about the numbers, they go, okay, but if you don't give us a laser, then you'll just add it to the stop loss premium, like I explained before. Then they go no new laser with a 30% cap of stop loss premium. Okay, so this example explains using a no new laser versus a traditional stop loss contract, or you can do a captive contract with no new laser. But there's claim strategies to manage this risk. So I would say there's no reason to prepay for lasers. A no new laser contract is anywhere from 10 to 15% more than a regular contract. So you're prepaying for the laser. And then when you get the laserable member, they're going to raise your rates 30%. You're going to hit the max. So here's an example of using a regular contract versus a no new laser contract, and using a strategy versus just being protected by the no new laser. Year 1 here, I put 10% more, traditional contract, $250,000, a no new laser is $275,000. Not that much extra. No big deal. 6% increase on stop loss sounds pretty normal. It is pretty normal. So our 250 goes to 265, or 275 goes to 291.5. Pretty normal. Year 2 going into year 3, you have the laserable person come onto the plan. So you're going to have your 30% rate cap. Your 291.5 goes to 378,000. Big jump. Or use a claim strategy instead, and which costs about $35,000 depending on what you do, and you get your 6% increase. Brings you to 315.9. You're still better off, a lot better off. Year 2, at cancer patient, laserable person, still on the plan. When I say year 2 of being on the plan, so we're at year 4. You're gonna get another 30% rate cap. You're gonna go to $492,000. Use the claim strategy again. Let's call it $35,000. 6% increase on the stop loss premium. You're at $332. Huge spread. When that laserable person comes off, they don't lower your stop loss premium. They just you just go back to your normal 6%. That's what happens here. Laserable person comes off, we go up 6%, but you're now at 6% of 492 versus 6% of 332. The no new laser contract is a really good sales story. There are a lot better strategies out there that manage your plan even better. So best contract in the country? I don't know. Best sales story in the country? Absolutely. Now, I don't want to just bash captives. There are good things about captives. At the end of the day, captives aren't bad. Captives are the best marketing machine in our industry. I'm jealous of it. They've created a great educational resource for brokers all across the country. That's amazing. Without captives, they probably wouldn't, or you as a broker sometimes, or the ones that have captive clients, probably would have never heard about the cost containment strategies, the alternative sourcing, reference-based pricing, care navigation, direct contracts. So they're great educational tools. They've done an amazing job of this, and those educational tools have turned them into amazing marketing machines, which is great. So, but at the end of the day, stop loss and captives are the same thing. Your stop loss carrier doesn't save the client money. Your captive doesn't save the client money. You as the broker putting in that extra effort, doing the extra education, doing the extra implementation work, the extra paperwork, the extra claims management, the extra auditing and the reviewing, you're doing that. The captive's not doing that. So yes, captives have a great spot. Yes, there's some good in the industry, but they're not the end all be all. And you as the broker need the praise. You need the applause, not so much them. So I want you guys to look at your books of businesses that are with captives, or maybe you've been pitched a captive. And I just want you to take a step back and think about, pat yourself on the back and say, we've done an awesome work here. We've been able to help these clients. But at the end of the day, if the captive is the one that got you there, then great. There's some thanks that needs to get there to go to them. But you are the reason your client has been so successful.